think we're on now. With that, I'll call to order the March 5th, 2020 meeting of the Kalamazoo City Planning Commission. Thank you all for coming. Can we have a roll call?
Yes. Chambers.
Here.
Ellis.
Here.
Espinoza is absent. Greenman Wright.
Here.
Milliken.
Here.
Patelko.
Here.
Pitts is absent. Bias, absent. Wisner.
All right, thank you. We have an agenda before us. Are there any changes to the agenda?
No changes to the agenda for tonight.
All right. Can I have a motion for adoption of the agenda?
I move to adopt the agenda as presented.
Motion by Greenman Wright. Is there a support?
Support.
All right, support by Chambers. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, great, thank you. We have minutes of from our meeting of February 6, 2020 in our packet. Were there any comments, questions, or changes to the minutes from February 6th? If not, can I have a motion to approve the minutes from February 6th?
I move to approve the minutes from last month's meeting in February.
Thank you. Motion from Ellis, support?
Support.
All right, any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Any communication or announcements?
None.
All right, any new business?
And no new
business?
business to add. I'm just going to discuss a few items under the city planner report section.
Great. Thank you very much. Then we will move into public hearings. And starting with PC 2020-04, 416 Phelps Avenue, the Greater Open Door Church of God in Christ, with a special use permit regarding the construction of a new church at that location. And we'll allow Mr. Eldridge to get to the podium.
One on? There it is. So, thank you. So the request for Open Door Church of God in Christ is for 416 Phelps Avenue, and the applicant is requesting a special use permit to allow a new church building to be constructed on this site. As you can see in the aerial, the property is over half an acre, 5.3 acres. And the old structure, which is shown in the aerial, has been removed. Looking at the current zoning, you can see it is residential, single family. Where the church is located, just to the west of the church, it is a residential duplex. The existing land use just identifies it as vacant at this point in time because the church has been removed. And the future land use, obviously this is a residential area, but churches are commonly found in residentially zoned areas. So that is not uncommon. As far as some images of the site, this is a view from Phelps Street. So you can see part of the existing parking lot is still there, and behind the tractor trailer is where the former building was located. The narrow strip that extends to the east has a existing shed on it, and then there's a fenced-in play area. This is a view looking to the north, showing the two single-family homes that are directly adjacent to the portion of the property where the church will be reconstructed. This is a view from the adjacent street on the east side. You can see that play area, and that's directly next to a single-family home. This is looking south from the what's left of the parking lot for the church. This building is owned by the church as well, and it serves as the parsonage currently. Across the street are single-family homes. And this particular site layout is what's been proposed to provide a visual on the, excuse me, the building being put in. Other things I want to mention here, so it was, I believe it was July of 2019 when the fire occurred, and the damage was significant enough that they had to demolish the remaining part of the church. The congregation has been working since then to rebuild the church on the same, in the same location with a similar footprint. The former church was approximately 4,500 square feet. The new church proposed is 4,926 square feet approximately, and it will have a sanctuary, fellowship hall, kitchen, and offices. In addition to the church services, they have some outreach ministries that include a food pantry and an after-school programs for children, which obviously they haven't been able to continue those in the same capacity without the church building. The organization, as I mentioned, has the property directly south of this, which serves as the parsonage, so they've got a considerable amount of land in the middle of this block. And on the outreach part for this particular request, the applicant will speak more about that. They've got some letters of support from folks in the area, and we did pass along all this information to the Kalamazoo East Side neighborhood for them to review. Under the review criteria, there's really not much changing with this particular site, so I won't go through each one of the review criteria, but I do want to let the board know that this will require site plan review, so they'll be looking at stormwater collection, they'll be looking at any conflicting land use screening, landscaping, all those site elements will be looked at during the site plan review process. So, but there's not any, there's no change in the curb cuts proposed at this point. Well, I shouldn't say that. Depending on what layout gets approved, this one shows a curb opening on Edwin Street. But again, that will be subject to site plan review. If there'll be, just the existing curb cut on the Phelps side, or if there'll actually be an access point on each end onto a public street. So the rationale, just to kind of sum this up in bullet points, the church and other religious assembly uses are allowed as a special use in RS5. Churches are a common use within the residential neighborhoods and are a vital component of providing needed youth support services, which was mentioned in the staff report under the master plan and strategic plan elements there. This site was previously occupied by the church and is still owned by the same church entity. And the church will begin to offer their outreach ministries, when they're able to rebuild their sanctuary and have their facilities restored. So with that, I'm going to let the Pastor McLean come up and the developer involved to talk a little bit more about this project. Let's see, I think.
Well, first, are there any questions for staff at this moment? Can I ask one question?
Sure.
There seems to be a decent increase in parking from what existed there before to what is proposed here. Was that driven by code or by demand?
Good question, and that's why I indicated proposed site layout, because this has not been looked at by the site plan review committee at this point. I mean, as far as what would the required parking be for a building this size, it would be 29 parking spaces. So they are showing more parking than what the code allows right now. But there's also issues with impervious cover, stormwater collection. So there's a lot of facets that need to be looked at. And I think those will help reshape some of the proposed site layout that you're looking at right now. But this gives at least a concept of what's planned.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for staff at this time? Okay, thank you.
No, that's fine. Hello, sirs and madams. My name is Jeff Brown. I'm with JRB Properties Management. We're out of Allegan, Michigan, and we're proposing to build on this project. What you see there before you, if I could answer to the parking question, is a wish list. Obviously, that'll be discussed and approved and dealt with at a later time, but we're keeping the building basically to the same footprint, same area. And I do have some elevation views with me if anyone or in the room would like to see those.
I'm Pastor Blair McLean, and I'm the pastor of the church. And we don't see anything different too much for where we were. And as he said, the property line it goes back even to Edward Street. And actually, on the left of this property is also our property as well.
Great. Does anyone have any questions for the applicant at this time?
Mr. Chair, so in the agenda packets, we did include the layouts, the elevation views of the church.
Okay, good.
So all the board members do have that.
Good.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So the comment was made that and it certainly appears that the footprint, the size, everything of the building is going to pretty much mirror what was there before. Is your operation going to, and size of your congregation going to fairly mirror what was there before as well?
Yes. We will still do our food pantry, food servicing. We'll still have after-school programs. And we also do an outreach for hat, gloves, coats, things like that for the homeless. All those things will still be in place there.
Great. Any other questions for the applicant at this time?
I had a question. I did hear about your fire that happened to the church, and Mount Zion, the church I am a part of, had a collection during that time. I just wanted to, can you speak more on like what happened and what you guys have gone through and how you're trying to recover from that? And also, I heard about a wish list too.
Well, as far as we know, there was a young man that burned the church. He was 12 years old, so that's still under investigation. He was skipping school, and he entered one of the back windows and broke out. And I don't know what he done. They haven't given us all the information on it. Because he is a minor, he's in Detroit now. He's been in Detroit for about 4 months under evaluation of what happened. So we just got a letter a week or so ago from them. As far as what he used and how it burned, we don't know yet. They haven't told us. So our understanding and our knowledge of really what all took place, we really don't still know. I was out of the country at the time when I was, it actually happened on May 15th, and I wasn't in the country, so when they got in touch with me, it had already been assessed and it had already burned. And I just was getting pictures. They sent me pictures on my phone of what happened and how the building looked after the fire. So we don't really know too much more about that because the boy is a minor. He's only 12. Well, he was 11 when it happened. He's 12 now. So as far as we don't know anything else.
To answer, I commented on the wish list, and that was just in reference to that drawing there that has additional parking, that's all. So that's, the church could use that extra parking, but that'll be a later conversation with site review and approvals.
Any other questions at this time? Yes.
And then just one more question. Because of the fire, are you guys going to be working on better security systems or cameras so that this doesn't happen to you guys again? Is the builder going to help with that, or do you guys have something already set up?
Yes, there's two things going on. We're going to do some things ourselves, and because this was a fire with the Act of 1968, they are giving us extra monies to make sure, because it was a church burn. They're doing some extra things so we can have extra security. And like I said, we just got this letter just recently of what their intentions are as far as us having some extra security, lighting cameras, so forth and so on.
Thank you. Anything else? All right, thank you very much. If we have other questions, we might ask them later. But at this time, we'll open the public hearing. As
Thank
a
you.
reminder, we ask that you step up to the podium, state your name and address, limit your comments to a 4-minute time limit, and also sign your name and address to the podium that I believe is somewhere stage right. So with that, if you have any public willing to speak, please come to the podium. Seeing none, I believe I'll close the public. Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I believe Pastor has some letters of support that, okay.
From the community, we have from the Northside Association, St. Mary's Church,
Thank you.
the East Side Association, St. Mary's Church, where we're currently having our services. We still have our food pantry open. We're still able to do some of the things that we do. We still feed the hungry. But the after-school programs, those kind of things, we cannot do right now because we're using another facility. And we have letters from that church, St. Mary's, as well as a resident in the community that lives right across the street from where the building was burned.
Okay, good. Should you give those to?
Yeah, Beth can take this.
Great, thank you. Thanks. Okay. It's about last chance? Okay, and we'll close the public hearing. Any technical questions for the applicant or staff? Then to open discussion, we'll take a motion on the hearing. This is a special use, so we have the deciding body here.
I move to approve the special use permit for the church on 416 Phelps Avenue.
All right. We have a motion from Ellis to approve the special use permit. Do we have support? Support by Wisner. Okay. Ms. Ellis, would you like to say anything more?
If you wanted a church and to rebuild it, I will hope for something bigger and greater, but I understand you work with what you have. I'm glad you have insurance and those things in place, and good luck to you guys in the future. You guys are doing a great thing in the community with the youth support and continuing to do the things that you are able to do with the space allowed. It sounds like you're thankful and grateful for continuing your ministry and doing those things in the public and for the community of Kalamazoo. So I thank you. And it looks like it's going to be a nice layout, too.
Any other discussion or comments? I'd add just the agreement with the findings in the staff report regarding the request and the consistency with the review criteria that are found in the zoning ordinance, and just add that, this is basically a continuation of the use that was there before, fitting in with the neighborhood. So with that, seeing nothing more, can we have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Wisner? Yes. Commissioner Patelko?
Yes.
Commissioner Milliken?
Yes.
Commissioner Greenman Wright?
Yes.
Commissioner Ellis?
Yes.
Commissioner Chambers?
Yes.
Good. Good luck. Thank you. All right. Next item, PC 2020-05, HKH Properties LLC requesting a special use permit to allow a moving and storage business at 3635 East Cork Street.
All right, so we're ready to go with the next one here. So 3635 East Cork Street. And this, the business entity name is Two Men and a Truck. The applicant is requesting a special use permit to allow a moving and storage business to occupy this existing site on East Cork Street. It is a rather substantial piece of property at 2.52 acres. And it does have an existing building that is 12,100 square feet. Looking at the zoning, it is commercially zoned, so it's in the CC zone district directly adjacent to it to the west. It is M1, which is limited manufacturing. So it is on the fringe, so to speak. Looking at the land use, it shows up as commercial. Looking at the future land use, again, commercial. This is a view from East Cork Street. This is more of the east side of the building, and this was formerly occupied by Kalamazoo Amusement, and they used it, they used a portion of the building in a similar capacity. They had a retail storefront area, and they had a substantial amount of storage in the back. The one thing I do want to mention on the, what's going on here with this business is Two Men and a Truck is currently located at 3410 East Cork Street, just down the street, in a smaller building, smaller piece of property, and this site allows them a larger building, larger acreage for additional parking, which they need with the growing business. And this will have the retail space. How it's been described to me was there was retail space for box and moving supply storage in the front part of the building, as well as scheduling moving services. They'll also have warehouse area. They'll have office area within the building. They do want to add some additional parking, and that layout is in your packets. That shows another 12 parking spaces in front of this part of the building, and then let's see this view here. So on the side of the building, there would be additional spaces for truck parking. 18 truck parking spaces are going to be added, and the outreach element. So we did talk to the applicant in detail. The Millwood Neighborhood Watch person in charge, who was John Hilliard, actually reached out to me and said he didn't have any issue with it, that they briefly discussed it at their meeting. And in addition to that, the owner of DNS Auto at 3520 East Cork Street sent me an email. His name is Jerry Andrews, and he's in support of this special use permit for this particular property. Looking at the review criteria that the board uses, well, let me just go through these real quick here. On the So these are just, views of what is directly around the property. And we've got the former Red Roof Inn and some other office buildings to the north. You can see the new hotel under construction in the distance there. Looking north, looking to the east, we've got 2 vacant buildings, commercial buildings. One has the large garage bays in the back, so that is still redevelopment potential there. Directly to the south are 2 hotels. And then directly to the west, adjacent to the property, this is in that M1 zoned property, and it is essentially a utility storage yard right now on that site right there. So looking at the review criteria, the items I wanted to mention was, first of all, the compatibility. This use is very compatible with what is around it. It's definitely an improvement over the utility storage yard that's directly to the west. They are not proposing any additional curb openings. The additional parking spaces for truck storage that'll be on the south side of the building. There's plans to do landscaping. Apparently, one item mentioned was a landscaping buffer on the south side of the building so that when the trucks are maneuvering in and out of the parking spaces, they don't hit the building. So there would be some landscaping against the building. There'd be more landscaping on the other side of the truck parking on the East Cork Street side. But, other than the additional parking areas and landscaping, the applicant does not have any other plans. So there'll be a significant amount of green space that remains on this property. And this will be subject to site plan review, so all those items will be looked at in more detail. On the rationale side, the bullet points, the moving and storage business is a permitted use, permitted as a special use in Zone CC. The special use permit will allow for the operation and expansion of an existing business in Kalamazoo, which definitely gets back at the strategic plan and economic vitality and business retention. The existing building was used in a similar capacity, which is true with the Kalamazoo amusement operation, but not to the degree of the trucks on site that 2 men in a truck will have. Minimal site improvements are required to accommodate the moving and storage business. And then lastly, the property is directly adjacent to M1 zone property, which is used in a more intensive manner. Is there any questions for staff?
Any technical questions at this time?
I have one, maybe this could be for the applicant, but just to clarify, the storage units would be inside of the building? There's not additional
Correct.
storage,
Correct.
warehousing being built?
And they'll elaborate more on
Okay.
that, but it's all storage
Internal.
inside the building of the personal effects
Okay,
of their clients.
okay.
Anything else? Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. And again, the layout provided is a concept layout that has not been looked at by anybody on the site plan review committee yet, so.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Is the applicant here that would like to speak to this request?
Good evening. I'm Kyle Norcutt. Mr. Eldridge covered it pretty well, but if you have questions for me, let me know.
All right. Maybe what do you want to ask your question?
I think Planner Eldridge clarified that all the storage is internal in the building, correct?
Yeah, we have some mobile storage containers that we use for customers, and then we would bring them back, and store them inside the building, so there wouldn't be any access from outside of the building, like a self-storage facility or anything like that.
Any other questions for the applicant?
I have one comment. I know that this is generally kind of outside of our purview. But I just really was surprised, you know, I've obviously driven down Cork Street, but I was like, man, that's a lot of open space. And I really want to encourage you to take advantage of, totally, I realize that this is not my job, but to take advantage of native species plantings, things that you don't have to mow, because you could really do a lot of incredible low-maintenance plantings there. So take advantage of that opportunity, even some trees.
Yeah, and in a former life, I used to run a landscaping business, so looking forward to cleaning up the building. It's been vacant for a while, and the parking for the trucks will be set back, but we plan to put some buffers there with landscaping as well. There isn't a parking there for 18 trucks. We have between 12 and 14. I see that kind of being the max for a while. And as the employee parking comes in during the day, the trucks go out. We're typically dispatching them out at 8 o'clock, so they're gone most of the day. Plan to add some lights to the building. Security cameras should help, being vacant for as long as it was. That should help the area. And initial plans would be to new asphalt and clean it up and just really update the building itself. We like the area. We've been there about 14 years, almost directly across the street, bottom left corner of that building, and most of our employees are really within about a mile radius of there, so wanted to stay there, and it's worked good for about 14 years. Keep it rolling if we can. So
That's good. Landscaping was my only comment I was going to make. Otherwise, you know, it's a very, you know, pretty straightforward idea. So, so I'm happy to hear what you said there. Thank you. Any other comments or questions at the moment?
Just a thank you for using a vacant building. I think it's a really good use of the property. Obviously, it fits right in, but it sounds like you have some really great improvements planned, and it should make a big difference on that corridor.
yeah, thank you.
I'm just curious, are there any other two-minute truck around the area, or was the closest one?
This, I own and operate this one in, the territory is really Kalamazoo, Battle Creek. So we kind of like being on the east side of Kalamazoo there. I have the franchise in Grand Rapids and another one in Holland, Grand Haven area as well too. So 3 in west side of the state, more or less. There's some office staff that we keep at this location that helps with the other offices as well. So.
Any other questions? Great. Thank you. We may have some more later.
Okay.
Again, this is a public hearing, so again, if you have any comments, please come forward, state your name and address, and sign in at the podium. So is there anyone who would like to speak to this request? Okay, good. With that, I will close the public hearing. And are there any technical questions for staff or the applicant at this time? Taking it easy on us. Okay. All right, well, with that, can I have a motion on the request?
I'll make a motion on PC 2020.05 to approve the special use permit to allow a moving and storage business at 3635 East Cork Street.
Motion by Greenman Wright. Do we have support? Support by Patelko. Do you have any comments to kick us off?
Just that obviously this is within the scope of our future land use plan, within the master plan. It's a good use of an existing building. The applicant obviously has really great plans to improve the property. I think it's a really great project.
Thank you. Any other comments or discussion on the motion? No? Well, as I'm prone to do, I support the findings that staff have made in the staff report and put that in the record, and then just add that this is supported by the review criteria in the zoning ordinance, and I'm particularly I appreciate the comments that the applicant has made regarding the landscaping and the screening that would provide, and assume that will be addressed in the site plan review process. With that, I will take take a roll call on the motion.
Commissioner Chambers,
Support.
Commissioner Ellis. Commissioner Greenman Wright,
Yes.
Commissioner Milliken,
Yes.
Commissioner Patelko. Commissioner Wisner.
Great. Congratulations. Okay. Other business.
And I'll do the introduction here. So our reporting process for the neighborhoods that receive funding from the city of Kalamazoo was changed last year, and there's now an annual report out, so to speak, required by those neighborhoods that receive funding. So, this is the first time around. It will, and so you'll see more of this going forward. We have a few more neighborhood associations that will be speaking next month as well. But this is really just to, give us a brief overview of all the good things that are going on in their neighborhood that, that the city's able to help with. So with that being said, we can proceed forward with the report by the Kalamazoo East Side Neighborhood Association.
Thank you, Katie. What I brought with for everyone to see today are some conceptual, for the most part, activities that with the residents. And this is really tall and I'm really short. Here we go. That the residents and a partnership with the land bank and cooperation and partnership and collaboration with the ENET group and the city, community planning and development, help come up with. What Katie's holding right now is our vision of the East Main corridor that stems from the foot of East Main Hill all the way up to the top of East Main Hill. And the residents got together and with a consultant, we came up with our vision and the things that we really want to have happen on the East Main corridor and in the neighborhood in general. And they helped they were identifying things that the city could help us with, that we could do together, and that we could do collaboratively with other organizations. It's coming along pretty well, with the exception of one little item that we still, I believe, is going to take a while to work on, and unfortunately, that's our Dairy Queen laundromat area. But everything else seems to be falling into place. We're getting all kinds of assistance from all over, from a wide variety of organizations. Even Borges is talking about coming on board and helping us and looking at maybe we could get some of their employees into the housing area. We had Rockwell Park redone, and it's not quite done yet, but it's almost done. It looks gorgeous. Everybody's very excited about it. And people are coming out and actually feeling even better about being in the neighborhood. And people that come through are actually giving us positive feedback on it. So I thought I'd give you a little taste of that, and probably would be more specific later in the year as far as activities that have actually launched, because things do take time with us sometimes, but they always stay once they get there. So are there any questions about our activities? None? Awesome. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, do you want to have Pat go through each one of the boards?
Okay, sure, I can do that. This is actually at the 1600 block of East Main next to a building that the land bank owns, and the East Main Food and Beverage, which is at the top of the hill, and then more property that the land bank owns over here. The residents got together, we had a charrette that the residents spoke loud and clear how they would like this area to look and envision what kind of housing needs to be there, what kind of commercial businesses need to be there, or that they would like to see there. And this is the artist's rendition of what that area could look like. This next one talks about the phases that'll be going through. Phase 1 will be at the corner here at Edwin Street, and Phase 2 is slated to be across the street with small businesses and like a mixed-use area scenario. We are still working with the person that owns East Main Food and Beverage to figure out how we all can work together and make that into a positive section, and him being on board with being able to improve his business also. Next, we have, you got it? What the building did look like before a project between the land bank and the East Side Neighborhood Association called East Side Voices. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with that project, where after doing the small homes on Forbesman and doing the Pocket Park, we came up with an idea of why don't we capture some of the historical aspects of the East Side and talk to some of the residents that have been there for a long time, talk to people who, why they moved to the East Side and what they like about it, what they love about it, and people who are no longer living in the area, contacting them. And Buddy Hanna, who is also a resident of the East Side, with the help of Sid Ellis, did interviews along with some youth, because we also recruited PMN to teach our youth how to do filmmaking and documenting the interviews and things. And an artist that used to live on the East Side. They all came together. We came up with a book, which I'm sorry I didn't bring, but it's at the library. It's going to be shown at the Art Hop, along with the mural that the artist did and the interviews. And also, when Second Wave Media came, they did some interviews also of our some notable residents. And we posted that along the side of the building that the land bank owns, and then we put the mural on the other side. And I did not bring a picture of that, I'm sorry. I couldn't find it. But where the mural is now, which is there, this is the vision that the residents thought would be appropriate to have on East Main, and having another plaza type activity there. And perhaps having occasional activities like food, what do they call those, food truck rallies, and things that bring people into the neighborhood to enjoy, as well as the people in the neighborhood enjoying things and activities. So this is not a done deal, but it's a vision, something similar to that we'd like to see happen over there.
So as we work through the zoning ordinance updates and we think about the new districts, are these visions and these concepts being incorporated into those setbacks, land uses, heights, et cetera, so that things like this are feasible?
That's a good question, and the answer is yes. I mean, what you're looking at is a mixed-use development with lots of pedestrian space, very similar to the live-work zones that we've created in the ordinance, and that certain commercial districts will be rezoned to these live-work zones. So yes, it is compatible.
Great. Well, my checkbook is not thick, So that's what I can offer you today, and otherwise it's very inspiring. And if nothing more, the camaraderie and the spirit that is brought to your neighborhood and the folks that were engaged in that, I think just from hearing you talk has been some incredible value, I'm sure. So
Yes, it has. It's been a wonderful experience, and I'm looking forward to continuing to work with residents, working with the city, and anybody else that wants to come on board, because we all have a lot of fun.
I'm sure stuff will come. So
I was really delighted to hear the report, I believe it was on Artbeat, on WMUK, featuring the stories from the East Side Voices. That was a really neat story.
Thank
So
you.
it was exciting to hear. It's like, oh man, I know her. No, so it was a really neat project.
Yep. We're looking to do more things like that, because art adds to the vision of what we're trying to do, and everybody is so creative over there anyway. So let's get them on board.
And
Thank you.
I just had one more thing to add. I came to a couple of you guys' events where they've been planning and going through things, and I'm really excited for you guys. I'm excited that the community has really spoken up and that you guys have had your visions come to pass, like starting to come to pass. The park is going to be amazing, which will be nice, and that'll be cool. And then if you guys can get like the food truck rallies and stuff like that, because definitely bring more life to the east side.
Yes, I agree.
But good job.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
any other comments or questions?
Just for that park and the idea and the food truck rallies, definitely can do a lot of things. Just think, yearly events, kind of keep it up, making sure that other parks and recs possibly know about this location, possibly can do some fun things for the kids in the summer as well. So looks like it's going to be a great vision and good for the east side.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. We have anything next?
Yeah, I can do the announcement,
All right.
yeah.
All right, so we have, go for it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. So the next speaker we have is speaking on behalf of the Edison Neighborhood Association.
Good evening. So my name is Vanessa Collins-Smith, and I am a board member with Edison Neighborhood Association Board of Trustees, and I'm also a resident of Edison. Our neighborhood director could not be with us this evening, so she asked me to step up and share some of the wonderful things that we're doing within our neighborhood. So I'm elated to share goals accomplished relating to our neighborhood plan, along with some of the future goals that we are working on. One is promoting programs to preserve existing housing and increase home ownership. This past year, we were able to assist 35 residents who receive tax foreclosure notices. We partnered with Kalamazoo Neighborhood Housing Services to promote home ownership and to offer credit repair classes. We also worked with Impact Kalamazoo, which is a collaborative of churches in Southwest Michigan, to address much-needed home repairs during the summer of 2019. Also in 2019, KNHS increased Edison's housing stock with a new build on Stockbridge. Under goal number 2, reconstructing Portage Street, the association have been having monthly meetings with Washington Square businesses to work on streetscape issues and also hosting multiple family events. Under this goal, we are happy to announce that the City of Kalamazoo, Consumers Energy, and others are replacing municipal utilities on Portage Street. Street placement is scheduled to begin in 2021. Under Goal 3, dealing with our youth daycare, safe routes to school, summer and other school-related activities, we have partnered with several youth organizations to host events addressing anti-bullying, celebrating our rocket football and other youth-related activities at our center. We've partnered with you and the City of Kalamazoo to host 8 for My City Youth Employment, 8 crews that is. Also going forward, our association is looking forward to the YMCA creating a 24-hour licensed daycare at the new creamery site on the corner of Portage and Lake Street. Under goal number 4, install free Wi-Fi. Yes, we're currently looking into the logistics of making Edison a community Wi-Fi friendly neighborhood, something that we believe that would be very helpful for all of our residents. Our 5th goal is to increase family-friendly retail shopping. We have successfully partnered with Washington Square Collective to increase the appearance of Portage Street storefronts, including window displays, murals, and flower pots, new lighting, security cameras, picnic tables, and painting over blighted graffiti-covered walls. We also continue our weekly scheduled trash cleanup on Portage. We have also helped in the establishment of new businesses in Washington Square, to include Layla's Cool Pops and the Cape Pep Diner. Our future endeavor is the opening of an authentic Mexican restaurant where Jersey Giants was once located. In addition, we have partnered with several organizations to make our Delaware Court an artistic park-like eating area. And we do invite you to come, sit down, and mingle. Educational opportunities. We have hosted speakers at our community connection meetings and written articles in our association Addison Voice newspaper on the entire list of things that Addison residents wanted to become more knowledgeable about. So we are happy to say that number 6, we can cross it off because we have accomplished that. For 7, construct gateway signage and brighter lighting. We will be working with Addison residents to identify street lights that are not working and with consumer energy to make needed repairs. Under goal number 8, addressing trails, parks, farmers market, ADA accessible, making farmers more ADA accessible, complete, and create complete streets. We are happy to announce that the Reed Park improvements are nearly completed. And as you drive down Portage, and right there on the corner of Portage and Reed, across from the grocery store, it is a beautiful sight, a sight long, long, long needed. We're also happy to announce the completion of Mill Street resurfacing, ADA sidewalks, and bike lanes within the Addison neighborhood. The last of our goals for discussion tonight is the expansion of the Kalamazoo Valley River Trail. We're looking forward to the new back trail extension in 2020 to follow Portage Creek and connect to the Kalamazoo Farmers Market. Any questions? Great, that means I have done a wonderful job.
You've been very busy.
The Edison Neighborhood Association Board of Trustees, as well as the citizens, thank you for allowing us to share goals accomplished and goals to be accomplished. Good evening.
Thank you.
And the third neighborhood tonight is the Vine neighborhood. So if we could have a representative from the Vine neighborhood step forward.
Good evening. I'm Steve Walsh. I'm a little taller than Pat. Those are tough acts to follow, and I just want to say kudos and thank you to the East Side and the Edison Neighborhood Associations for continuing to be inspiring in their efforts and their work. I am Steve Walsh. I have the privilege of representing the Vine Neighborhood Association. I've been the executive director for 13 years, and I've lived in the neighborhood for 20. As this is our initial opportunity to interact with you and to respond to the survey, I am negligent in boards and derelict in not having a list of the items on the agenda that I could go down. I'll offer a more broad general overview of where we're at. I think areas of the master plan that we've excelled in or responded well to were the calls that we heard from the residents that they were really interested in having more opportunities to socialize, to find ways to interact with each other. We have art hops planned for the rest of this year. We've got events tacked on to some of the end of the art hops. Those are always popular. They're great opportunities for up-and-coming artists who have art that they'd like to show but don't necessarily want to jump through art hop hoops. So those are exciting events that we got planned for the rest of the year. This is the 40th anniversary of the Neighborhood Association, and under the auspice of that event occurrence, we're going to have a number of events. We have an annual meeting we're generously hosted by the pub at O'Duffy's. Jamie has offered to open up the back of that area there, so we'll have live music. Hopefully we'll have an opportunity. Some of the feedback that we've gotten in the past is that we have these raucous, engaging annual meetings, and then they're over. And so people have asked for opportunities to mingle and meet folks afterwards. We have heard from residents that they've responded very favorably to our public art initiatives, so we have gone and we're working with a few different organizations and agencies such as the Rotary. I've got some projects with LISC as well to provide, get more public art up into the domain. This has also been a great opportunity for us to talk about access and how these opportunities materialize and who gets the chance to take advantage of them. So we've done well, I think, to plan events out throughout the rest of the year that will help bring people together. And we've got concerts in the park that we're looking forward to doing this year. We've got 2 different events at Pioneer Park and one in the skate park, which has been a fantastic success. I tip my hat to you folks for that as well. I think the areas of the master plan that we've struggled in are the areas of capacity and efficacy. I'm one person. I've got one part-time staff as well. We have a great sidewalk survey that's languished for 3 years now, and I don't know if it's even effective. We're struggling to make the changes in the lighting that the residents would like to see, so there's more coverage. Speed within the neighborhood, as it is throughout all of Kalamazoo, is a concern. The streets are not safe. We're working with the Safe Ways to School program, working with Katie to try to improve safety around El Sol Elementary as well. We have a number of partnerships planned for the summer with KPEP and My City, also working with Kalamazoo Neighborhood Housing Services to see what we can do to work on providing affordable housing within Vine. This is probably the primary concern of the Neighborhood Association as well as the residents. There's a strong feeling that if the affordable housing leaves, it will disrupt the fabric of the community of the neighborhood that really makes people feel like you're a part of the neighborhood. You work and live in the neighborhood, and then it's only 1 square mile, so things feel very close, and it's a very walkable neighborhood. And there's a feeling that if all the affordable housing goes away, then that kind of connectivity will also dissipate, and that will be a real long-term negative effect on the neighborhood. I think that is the brilliant program that I prepared for this evening in this first offer. So I thank you for the opportunity to engage and willing to answer questions as best as I can. I blame Vanessa for taking the bar up so high. And Pat as well. If I had gone first, it probably would have looked okay. So.
I actually have a question, and maybe all of our presenters could speak to this. I know that affordable housing is kind of an ongoing issue, and it affects really our core contiguous neighborhoods a lot, especially Vine and the western part of Oakland, Winchell neighborhood, and the north side. What do you think the city could do to continue to support our neighborhood associations in keeping a pulse on this? I don't even know.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. That's a good question. I haven't really thought of the city's role in that. The neighborhood association owns 11 residential units. We have tried to embrace HUD standards to keep what we can do as affordable. We've been challenged with that as we've refinanced properties that we've owned. We've been told we need to raise those rents. So I think as I walked the neighborhood this morning, I think one of the things that I was real cognizant of is we still have a challenge when houses come for sale. Our residents have a real challenge in getting to the table and having the resources to compete with the housing property management groups. And I would love to be able to work with another nonprofit. KNHS has filled that role before and been great at doing. We need to buy those properties as soon as they come up and find a way to turn around and put families in them, bluntly.
I have another question. I guess this is specifically for Vine and Edison because of the contiguous nature of downtown. How do you see the new development going on within the central business district affecting?
Optimistic, thank you. Optimistic by nature, sensitive to the weight and voice that new residents will be given, and hopefully residents of the core contiguous neighborhoods will be respected, and that their voices will carry merit and carry weight, and that there's an equitable way for new residents and long-term residents to have agency and to feel that this is an equitable process. But generally optimistic.
Now, can you put that on a chart, Steve? Thank you.
My optimism. My optimism in a pie chart.
Good.
Thanks.
No questions other than yours, Commissioner? Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you. All right. Thank you for those reports. Great work, everyone. All right, moving on. Are there any citizens' comments on non-agenda items? Any citizens wanting to speak? No? Okay. City Commission liaison comments. Mr. Irvin.
Good evening. I just wanted to commend whoever had the idea to have the neighborhood association leaders come down and give presentations. This is especially when their information deals with planning and zoning issues. It's especially important to have hear their point of view directly to you. Remember, this is also being televised, so when visuals are being shown, it's good to have them in a place where the cameras can pick them up, which happened with the north side. So when they were standing here. But then there's the audience that needs to see these things too. So turn it around once in a while and let everybody see them. So that's it. Basically, it's another chance for us to know what's going on in the neighborhoods. The neighborhoods that have associations really do get a lot more attention than the neighborhoods who don't have associations. And I think the ones who don't are missing a lot. They may think they don't need an association, but there are things that they need to attend to that they're not even aware of. So keep up the good work.
Thank you. City planner report.
And I'm going to step down to the podium so I can go through some of this information. I've got one slide to put up on the screen.
All right. Get your steps in.
Okay, before I go into a brief overview of where we're at on the adult use marijuana ordinance creation, I want to, first of all, touch base on a topic that was brought up last month as far as the Shakespeare's Comedy Club and some illegal posting of signs. That is something that staff is investigating how to address more adequately. Turns out it's not the managers and those in charge at Shakespeare's Pub. They're saying it's the promoters for the various acts that perform at the comedy club that are putting up these postings around town. So we are working on addressing that. The second item is the site plan review list. What's going on there? I guess the two big items to point out, which actually are on the 2019 list, the first one is Chick-fil-A. They have initiated the demolition and pulled a building permit, so the Chick-fil-A at West Main and Drake is underway. The graphics packaging project is still in the site plan review stage, but graphics packaging is doing a rather large, I think that's an understatement, expansion of their facility, and there's multiple buildings being expanded and built up height-wise. One will be approximately 80 feet in height, and the scope of their projects go from North Pitcher Street all the way to Harrison Street near the wastewater facility. So they've this is a major facility upgrade, which we're very fortunate to have here in Kalamazoo. So I just want to touch on that. And then as far as the adult use marijuana, that I have flyers for anybody that would like one at the end of the meeting for our upcoming neighborhood meetings for the next phase of the adult use marijuana public outreach. And Clyde Robinson is here tonight, and Clyde is on the team that is helping form the adult use marijuana ordinance, the social equity policy component, and also the local licensing component. So there's really three pieces that are going to come together. And this information is all available on the city's website. If you go to the homepage, under the news articles, you'll see adult use marijuana, and everything is there. The draft ordinance components that we've put together to this point are there, as well as the dates and times of all the upcoming neighborhood meetings and a lot of other good background information. So we are still working towards our stated goal of having this ordinance completed and the side components that come with it. The hope is to have everything done by June 1st. So with that being said, I am going to just kind of roll through what we have now. So we had 2 meetings in February, public feedback meetings held in the commission chambers here to collect a variety of feedback. Excuse me for one moment here. We slipped off the slide that I wanted to have up on the screen here. So we have the definitions here. Okay, so we'll just keep it like that for right now because I want to be able to show the different license types. So where I want to begin with here is we have our list on the left of the medical marijuana license types that the city has already adopted ordinance regulations for, a licensing process for, and at the time, there was not a driving force behind a social equity policy, so we just have those two components. Now, with the adult use, that request for additional time that was approved by the City Commission, giving us 6 months to draft an ordinance for adult use marijuana, was in part to give us time to look into the social equity component, which is a little more sophisticated than just figuring out which zone districts these licensed facilities should go in. And so we are working diligently on that, but I'll start with just the license types here, for example. And the ones that are shown in green are the ones that we will be able to issue adult use licenses for, we locally and at the state level, for entities that aren't already in the marijuana business. The other licenses that are shown in black on the right under the adult use, for the first 2 years, you have to have a medical marijuana license in order to apply for the equivalent adult use license. So what that spells out pretty clearly is, as far as our social equity component, which is to really provide those, provide some incentives for our local entrepreneurs to get into the business, there's only certain license types that are available for them if they're not already in the business. So that, so that does, that's very important to understand the distinction between the various license types and what those that aren't in the industry already are eligible for the first 2 years. So the citizen initiative obviously was crafted with some protections for those already in the business. And as far as what we have around the city right now, we have 21 medical marijuana facilities. That's 3 grow/processors, 2 processors, 2 safety compliance, and 11 provisioning centers. And so you'll have the provisioning centers that are out there in the community that are either open for business now or will be open soon. They will apply for an adult use license once we adopt an ordinance. So we're looking at that crossover, and that's a clear and logical path, that if you're in the grow business for medical right now, we're going to allow them to have an adult use grow license as well. So we're looking at that logical crossover. Again, these are what we're looking at. These are what we've pieced together based on the public feedback that we've received. But that question has come up. Those in the business right now are saying, "What's going to happen to us? You're making a separate ordinance. Are we going to be shut out? Or are we going to be included in the adult use marijuana?" So, to start on the first page here, there are limitations on what we can set separation distances from for the adult use licenses based on the initiative that was passed. So we are focusing on what is most important, and that is providing that 1,000-foot separation from any K through 12 schools, a 500-foot separation from any child care facilities. That seems like definitely a solid place to start and provide, equivalent protections based on the drug-free zone that has been established around schools, and also provide, some separation from child care centers. So when we look at the individual license types, we have this Class A grow, and I'm just going to go through, as far as this conceptual framework, what zone districts they line up with. And I know the question that's going to come up is, do you have maps to show what eligible areas there are? That is coming. We will have those done by our first neighborhood meeting on March 16th. We'll have maps showing available areas based on this framework of what zones certain license types are allowed in. So the Class A grow, we are, this framework's been laid out to allow it in the manufacturing zone districts because it's a grow, and also allowed in the CC commercial zone. And the reason for that is A, it's Class A grows are limited to 100 plants, and B, we allow greenhouses in the CC zone district. So we'd be hard pressed to not allow an indoor grow operation of that scale. When we get to the processors on the medical marijuana side have always have only been allowed in the M1 and M2 districts, and the intention of this framework is to keep it that way. It's just the manufacturing zone districts for processors. The safety compliance, which is the testing, so it's more like lab facilities in an office. It's all completely done indoors. Small quantities of product are tested. We are looking at the CC zone district where medical marijuana safety compliance facilities are allowed, but also expanding that to the Live Work 1 and the Live Work 2 zones, and the Business Technology and Research Park. And you might ask, why is the BTR Park being included? That's Western's development, and the reason for that is because they actually contacted us about a year ago about one of the lab facilities was doing some trials on marijuana, and they wanted to know if they were in alignment with the ordinance. And obviously, some of those facilities are Western-owned and some are private businesses down there. So for that very reason, we included BTR. And then the M1 and M2 zone districts, those we allowed the medical safety compliance facilities in, and so we will be allowing the adult use in, based on this framework. Secure transport, that's not changing very much from the medical. The framework lays that out as being allowed in the CC zone district with some limitations, and then being allowed in the M1 and M2 manufacturing districts. This is now on page 3. We've got the retailer establishments, retailer as it's identified under adult use on the layout, and that would be allowed in the CC zone district, just like we allow provisioning centers currently. We are also looking at expanding that to the Live Work 1 zone. There will be, under this proposal, a 1,000-foot separation distance between retailers or provisioning centers. So we're looking at trying to maintain that same spacing so we don't have a consolidation of facilities on our commercial corridors. In this draft framework, we've also included a component of our social equity, which is, I don't know how to phrase this, as we are looking at the elements of those who qualify, there's certain zip codes or census tracts that the city may use for eligibility, as well as local ownership of these entities applying for licenses, where the local ownership, is individuals that have resided in the city for the past 3 years, and then that local ownership needs to be comprised of 51% or more of the entity applying for the license. So if under this scenario 51% or more ownership is a local individual or individuals, and they live in certain areas of the city, they would qualify for a reduction in that 1,000-foot separation distance to 500 feet. So what that does is it would open up land for those individuals that wasn't available to some licensee applying from out of town. So rather than a 1,000-foot separation distance between facilities, that would open up land in between that somebody qualifying under our social equity policy and these requirements would be eligible to locate in, in that area. So that component is also carried through for micro businesses. So under the micro business category, which we will, with the framework lays out, would be allowed in the CC zone district, Live Work 2, and the M1 manufacturing district and M2. There is, for the CC zone district, there is a 500-foot separation distance between those. Well, I should say, in the Live Work 1 or the CC zone district, there's a 500-foot separation distance between micro businesses, and that would be reduced to 250 feet if they met these qualifications under the social equity policy and the local resident and ownership entity being over 51%. So that is, that's another component that we're looking at in here. The excess grower category is going to remain in M2 for the reason that an excess grow establishment has to be an individual or entity that has multiple Class C licenses, which we only allow medical Class C licenses in M2 now, so that's a logical transfer. And then designated consumption establishments. This one has spurred on a lot of discussion. This framework just identifies the eligible areas would be the CC and CCBD zone district, but I'm sure there'll be more discussion at our upcoming public meetings. So we've got 5 neighborhood meetings scheduled, and one element is to break out and discuss in more detail this framework, because it's very fluid at this point, and then also to continue to solidify elements of that social equity policy and piece together that document. So that is the brief run-through I wanted to do on the adult use marijuana. And Clyde, is there anything that you'd like to add? Anything I missed on that? If there's not, we can move forward, but if you want to say a few words.
If you have any questions, I'm willing to answer them, but I'll say this, and I will underscore Mr. Eldridge's comments. The social equity piece is very important, but it is like threading a needle because of the way we have to approach it. The statute talks about disproportionately impacted communities. What does that mean? The state has defined it as people of communities that have a higher than normal or average rate of marijuana prosecutions. So they took all the counties in Michigan and figured out which ones had a higher marijuana arrest or conviction rate than statewide. And then they looked within those counties for communities where 30% or more of the population was living at the federal poverty level. And that in Kalamazoo, that meant Kalamazoo City. In Calhoun County, that meant the city of Albion. In Van Buren County, that meant South Haven and Covert and Coloma and Niles in Berrien County. So there are there's 41 identified communities. They are all in the lower peninsula. They are predominantly on the west side, and it does go as far north as Big Rapids and Muskegon Heights, and also communities on the east side, Saginaw, Flint, Pontiac, Detroit, to name a few. But there's also, like I said, big communities and small communities, and so that's how the state identifies what is impacted. The problem with that is, as I pointed out, that people like myself who've lived in the city of Kalamazoo, and the way the state does is that if you are a resident and you can prove residency in one of those impacted communities, for the last 5 years, you get a 25% discount on your fees at the state. If you have a marijuana conviction in your background, you can get an additional 25%. And then if you can prove that you are a caregiver for at least 2 years between 2008 and 2017, you get an additional 10% discount. Now, that's all at the state level. But the problem with that is I would qualify for that 25% discount because I live in the city of Kalamazoo. I don't know that I would count myself as disproportionately impacted by marijuana, only as a prosecutor, not as a prosecuted person. And so that raises a question, and in doing the research on this, it's kind of interesting. There is a report that was issued in 2013 that was done by the American Civil Liberties Union, and they looked at possession of marijuana arrests between 2000 and 2010. And nationally, African Americans were approximately 3.7 times more likely than a white person to be arrested for possession of marijuana. In Michigan, wasn't quite as bad, but still 3.3 times more often than an African American person got arrested for possession of marijuana. And the statistics show that for both groups of races, the level of use was about the same. It's not as though that the black community was using marijuana more than the white community. That's not the case. So I think the argument there is that African American, in particular other minorities of color, have been disproportionately impacted by marijuana enforcement. The problem with saying, okay, what can we do to assist those folks, is that in Michigan we have a constitutional amendment that says you can't give preferences to people on the basis of race. And so that's threading that needle. There's also the 14th Amendment, which requires equal protection. Again, that has to be race neutral and based upon U.S. Supreme Court precedent. So as a result, what can we do to impact the lives of predominantly minority individuals who live in the city of Kalamazoo who have been impacted by marijuana enforcement so as to give voice and feet to this provision in the state law? The state has done one approach. I don't know that I've said on the record that I don't think it goes far enough, and we're looking at what we can do as a community to reach out and make these opportunities available for individuals in our community. But there are some challenges, obviously. But we're working on it. And as I said, it's fluid. We've had some discussions internally what we can do. We've had 2 public meetings, and there were some great suggestions from members of the community as to what we can look at. I don't think there's any quick fixes. Some of the things that we're looking into is maybe kind of an incubator or mentoring program in which people can get started in the business and then grow from there. But that's going to take a little time. That's not going to be an overnight thing, but that is something that we're looking at and what maybe something we can do. The other is obviously the micro business is an opportunity to kind of get started at the low end of things and grow your business. And that's some of the things we can do is if you are a resident and you're impacted, we can provide maybe more spaces for you to locate that business. So again, I would only buttress what Mr. Eldridge has already indicated to you and saying, the show's not over yet. We're still working on it, but we hope to have something in place by June 1st. The other thing is, if you read the paper this morning, you know that the city's been sued by incumbent medical marijuana providers who feel that the market should be open to them today. And we're going to be defending that lawsuit in due course. I won't comment on that. That would be inappropriate. Thank you.
I have a quick question. I'm wondering if off the top of your head, you don't need to send this data to us later. If you know of the licensee holders for growers, processors, safety compliance, et cetera, what percentage of them are located from outside of the state of Michigan?
Well,
currently for medical.
Currently, that I don't know. We'd have to get that information from the clerk's office as to where their home office is. I I don't have that information. I can tell you that there have been 29. We have a two-step process. If you originally qualify and you're in the process of getting your state license, we don't require that pre-qualification, but you can get a provisional license, then you have so much time to get your state license. And out of the 29 provisional licenses, approximately 8, I think, right? Eight or 9 have got their licenses and they're up and operating, and 6 of those are provisioning centers. The other one is, I think, a grow and a processor and the spot, the safety compliance. Yeah, I think that's 9. So there are 9 businesses that are up and operating. And again, of those 9, I don't know where all of them are located. I know at least one is located, their central office is in Troy, Michigan.
Okay.
But the rest of them I couldn't say. I know there's some that have a local flavor. There's a gentleman, he doesn't have his operation up and running. He happens to be a K College grad, and he's got a business down in Buchanan, and he's in the process of improving a building here in town. Is going to be up and running locally. So again, there's that local connection on that part.
The only reason that I was asking is I remember when we were passing the original ordinance for medical marijuana, there was a lot of concern from citizens that we were just paving the way for big grow operations from, other states, that it was not going to be mom and pop, that it was going to be big marijuana money, sorry, coming in. And I'm wondering if we're finding that that's the case, and if really this adult use protocol or whatever, it can be the remedy for that.
Unfortunately.
That's a big question, I'm
well,
sorry.
As Mr. Eldridge pointed out, unfortunately, because most of those large operations, the processors, the B&C, and retailers, you have to have the medical in place first for the first 2 years. So this is basically, the statute was written to benefit those people who are already in the market.
Right.
And so to the degree that there's out-of-state money involved, they've already feathered their nest, if you will, with the way that the statute was drafted. So that's not much we can do about that.
Good point. So anyways, that's a very good question, and that's the reason for trying to bolster this social equity policy with as many elements or components as we can to help our local citizens that want to get into the industry. So in closing, obviously we have an April 2nd Planning Commission meeting. We also have a special meeting on the calendar right now for April 15th. I have that date right off the top of my head. So yes, most likely this board, or shall I say, this board will be revisiting adult use marijuana next month. So just to be prepared for that. And, one item of clarification. So Clyde mentioned 29 licenses for facilities, and I said a total of 21. That's because there are 21 physical facilities either in operation or under construction in the city of Kalamazoo. Some are dual licensed. So some have grow and processing, or have multiple grow licenses. So you have 29 licenses that we've issued provisional certificates for, but the overall, the physical locations, there's only 21 of them citywide. So, okay, thank you.
There were several things you mentioned you're still working on, and like between the social equity, the consumption place definitions, but there's less than a month till April 2nd and public hearing notices, et cetera.
How will the timing work on that?
Right.
Well, that's where having that second meeting set up in
Right.
April will provide us a little more time. But there's a number of elements of the social equity policy that have been drafted on paper, as Clyde mentioned. And, so that is being diligently worked on. We've already got this framework
for the adult use marijuana categories, and like I said, a lot of them are direct crossovers or close to direct crossovers from the medical marijuana ordinance. So there's components that are straightforward. It's just some of these new license types we need to look at, more closely and get, continue to get feedback from the public on whether they're appropriate. We don't have to, last thing I want to say is we don't have to adopt all these adult use license types. We can choose to opt out of certain things like the actual event license. So that is, those are all aspects that that the city and the citizens can continue to think about and provide feedback on.
And thank you for running through all this. If we have any comments or questions or thoughts based on this, do we have to wait till the public hearing, or do you welcome that between now and, the next couple weeks?
Yes, we would welcome that at any time, and obviously you can contact staff and sit down if you want to talk about it individually. But yes, we are looking for all feedback at this point in time. And we have that June 1st date that we are to have a finished product done. As Clyde mentioned, there is this lawsuit, and that is in part to, I feel, to push us to make sure that we have hit that deadline, that we have an ordinance adopted for them. They obviously would like to begin selling the adult use marijuana tomorrow, but that's not going to happen. So yes, it's imperative that we stay on track with this ordinance development.
Okay. Any other questions on this? Good, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Does that conclude your report, City Planner? Yes. All right. Great. Last, miscellaneous comments by planning commissioners. Any planning commissioners with miscellaneous comments to conclude our evening?
I have one comment. I know that we are all still kind of in recovery from our larger meetings that we've had. But one point of encouragement, the feedback that I've been getting back from the community, I think more than any other hearing, specifically regarding the car wash, I think people have been coming to understand the function of the Planning Commission and interfacing with city staff and interfacing with city government. So despite the very long meeting, I think has had a really positive outcome within the citizens of the city. So well done, commissioners.
Thank you. Any other comments? No? Oh.
This is out of order.
Why don't you come up to the microphone here?
My name's Ken Larson. I live at 530 South Kendall Avenue. One comment, our granddaughters stay with us quite often, and we're concerned about the smell that comes with the smoking of marijuana. We also have an individual who lives in our neighborhood. She lives very close to an individual that grows for medical reasons, we assume. And there are times when she can't even sit out on her back porch and enjoy a summer afternoon or even winter because the smell is so strong. I also read an article in Niles, taking place in Niles, where they already have these distribution centers, and they've talked about the effect that it's having on the prices of homes in neighborhoods where that smell is quite prevalent. And I don't know if you've addressed that issue or not in some of the meetings that you've had with individuals or groups, but it is a concern for us that, I'm not going to say that my neighbors are going to smoke, but if they do, that means that during the summertime, we'll probably have to close our windows and our doors and use air conditioning because we can't subject our granddaughters to that kind of smell. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well then, if there's nothing else, you had something to say.
Just one off topic, don't forget to vote on Tuesday.
Thank you. Excellent.
Is this when Charlie would say he should be an election official?
Yes, right. He would remind you to volunteer to work your polls. But with that, thanks everyone. Have a good night. Good job.
Ella Payton, thank you for the meeting.
Friends, you are very nice.